You walk to your mailbox. Nothing unusual about today. Bills, a magazine, maybe an Amazon package slip. And then you see it. An envelope with the IRS letterhead in the corner. Your stomach drops before you even open it. Most people in that moment do one of two things. They panic and assume the worst. Or they assume the IRS is all-powerful and they have zero say in what happens next. Both of those reactions are wrong. And both of them can actually make your situation worse. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The IRS is one of the most powerful agencies in the federal government, but it operates inside a strict set of rules that exist specifically to protect you. Most taxpayers never learn what those protections are until they are already deep into a stressful process, making decisions out of fear instead of knowledge. That changes today. Before we go any further, I'm not a lawyer or a tax professional, and nothing in this video is legal or tax advice. This is purely educational content. Every situation is different, and tax law has nuances that depend on your specific circumstances. So for anything involving an actual notice you've received, please consult a qualified tax attorney or CPA. What I can give you is the framework, the actual rights you have, explained clearly, so you walk into any interaction with the IRS from a position of knowledge instead of fear. Let's start with something that will genuinely surprise you, because it reframes everything that follows. The complexity of the US tax code is not an accident. It's not even really a secret. The federal tax code runs to roughly 6,000 pages and contains over 3 million words. There are entire sections dedicated to incredibly specific things: taxation of vaccines, sweetened wine, shipowner protection associations. Even Einstein once said the hardest thing in the world to understand was income tax. If one of the greatest minds in human history found this confusing, you are not failing by feeling overwhelmed. But here's the insight that matters. You don't need to understand all 6,000 pages to protect yourself. You need to understand a much smaller set of rights, and once you know them, an audit notice stops being a mystery and starts being a process you can actually navigate. So let's talk about what an audit actually is, because most people picture it completely wrong. Movies and TV have trained you to imagine an audit as some dramatic confrontation, agents showing up at your door, going through your closets, treating you like a criminal. That is almost never what happens. The vast majority of IRS examinations are conducted entirely by mail. You receive a letter requesting documentation or clarification on a specific item on your return. That's it. Many of these get resolved with a single response and never escalate beyond that. The second, less common type is an in-person examination, where you meet with an IRS agent, either at an IRS office or,
in rarer cases, at your home or business. Even then, this is not an interrogation. It's a documentation review. And this is where your first major right comes into play, one that most people have absolutely no idea exists. You have the right to representation. This is not a minor technicality. This is one of the most powerful protections available to you. You are legally entitled to have a tax attorney, a certified public accountant, or an enrolled agent represent you during any interaction with the IRS. And you can choose to have them speak on your behalf instead of you. You don't even have to be present for many of these interactions if your representative has the proper authorization. Why does this matter so much? Because audits often aren't won or lost based on whether you did something wrong. They're often shaped by how information is communicated. An experienced representative knows exactly what the IRS is asking for, what documentation actually satisfies that request, and critically, what not to volunteer. Taxpayers without representation often offer up far more information than was actually requested, sometimes opening entirely new lines of inquiry that wouldn't have existed otherwise. If you receive an audit notice and the stakes feel significant, getting professional representation before you respond to anything is, hands down, the single most protective action available to you. Now here's a right that surprises almost everyone, because it directly contradicts what most people assume. You are not required to meet with the IRS at a time or place that is inconvenient for you. The IRS is required to conduct interviews at a reasonable time and place. If they propose a meeting that genuinely doesn't work for your schedule, you have the right to request a reasonable change. This sounds small, but psychologically, it shifts the entire dynamic. You are not being summoned. You are participating in a process with rules that apply to both sides. And this leads directly into something even more important: your right to clarity. The IRS is required to explain the audit process to you. You have the right to know why you're being audited, what specific items are being examined, and what the examination process will actually involve. If a notice you receive seems vague, confusing, or doesn't clearly state what's being requested, you are entitled to ask for clarification before you respond. Too many people respond to an unclear notice by guessing what's being asked and providing the wrong information, sometimes triggering exactly the kind of expanded review they were trying to avoid. Here's something that connects directly to why audits
Opportunity
happen
Act
in the
and
first
the
place.
Fair Housing Act.
And understanding
Banks cannot
this mechanism
discriminate in the
genuinely
provision of
changes how
financial
you experience
services
the
based on
entire
those
process.
characteristics.
The IRS doesn't
Period.
audit randomly out
And
of
if you have
malice.
evidence
Their system
suggesting
is
that
built around
discriminatory
statistical
targeting
scoring
played a
models
role
that flag
in why your account was
returns where
closed,
reported figures
that's not a contract
deviate
dispute.
significantly
That's a federal
from
civil rights
expected.
matter. Opportunity Act and the Fair Housing Act. Banks cannot discriminate in the provision of financial services based on those characteristics. Period. And if you have evidence suggesting that discriminatory targeting played a role in why your account was closed, that's not a contract dispute. That's a federal civil rights matter. This happens. It's documented. Communities of color check to your address on file. That process can take anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks, depending on the bank and your account status. If there's any dispute about the balance or if the bank is withholding funds they claim you owe them for overdraft fees, loans, or other balances, the bank can typically offset. Find yourself functionally locked out of mainstream banking, unable to cash checks.